I thought we were getting along well, until it turned out we weren't. Wow, that's a quote from a mom named Jen, and it hits hard, right? It really nails this silent problem that can creep into so many families. It's a feeling I bet a lot of parents out there can quietly relate to. Hello to all viewers of my channel.
So today, we're going to dive into something I think is incredibly important: the art of conversation with our kids. And we're going to explore how just a few simple but really powerful shifts in how we talk can totally transform our relationships. And maybe even more importantly, how they see themselves and their place in the world. I mean, think about it for a second. In the absolute whirlwind of daily life, we talk, right? We're constantly exchanging information, giving instructions, just filling the silence. But how often are we actually truly connecting through those words? All right, so let's get into our first section here, which is called the illusion of connection. We're going to start by taking a look at a family that, from the outside looking in, seemed perfectly fine. So this is Jen's family, the mom from that opening quote. You've got 2 kids in a good school, no major blow-up arguments. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? But when you look a little closer, the conversations were all just transactional. About homework, schedules, who's doing what chore. And after that, everyone just retreated to their own screens, their own little digital worlds. They were basically roommates, just living separate lives under one roof.
And this right here is the quiet crisis that Jen started to see. Her family was functioning, sure, but it wasn't thriving. And without that genuine connection, that sense of shared experience, well, the bonds that are supposed to hold a family together were just slowly and silently coming apart at the seams.
So what's the alternative to this? Okay, let's jump into our next section and really break down the anatomy of what makes a good conversation so we can see exactly what was missing. Okay, check this out. This really lays it all out. On one side, you have surface talk. That's the logistic stuff, right? Did you do your homework? On the other, you have good conversation. That's the stuff that sparks curiosity. Like, hey, what was the most surprising thing you learned today? See the difference? One is just about managing tasks. The other, that's about creating shared meaning, about building real closeness. Let me give you a great example. So there's this story about a trip to a museum. A 5-year-old named Sophie is just quietly looking at the Egyptian sarcophagi. Then, out of the blue, she asks this really deep question. Where did the mummies go? And it kicks off this amazing conversation about life, death, even reincarnation. But here's the kicker, the really important part. That big question didn't just appear out of thin air. It was built on a foundation of dozens of smaller, simpler, curiosity-driven chats that had been happening for a long, long time. And that right there brings us to an incredibly powerful tool, asking the right kind of questions. So in this next section, let's look at how this one little thing can totally unlock a child's potential, especially when they feel completely and utterly stuck.
Okay, I want you to meet a student named Carolyn. Now, Carolyn was just paralyzed by self-doubt. Every time she had to write something, she'd just freeze up. She was completely convinced that her ideas were horrible and that she could never, ever be a writer.
So instead of jumping in to critique her work or telling her, "No, you're a great writer," her mentor asked this one simple question. It's so brilliant. The question wasn't about whether the idea was good or bad. It was about where the idea came from. It completely shifted the focus away from judgment and right into curiosity. And this strategy is just so powerful because it's so simple. So step 1, you just ask why. You get curious about where the idea came from, not its quality. Then you genuinely follow that curiosity. You show real interest. And what that does is it validates their effort. It tells them their thinking has value. And just like that, you start to build their confidence from the ground up.
So what happened? Well, Carlin went from "my ideas are horrible" to actually reading her work out loud to the entire class and saying it was fun. I mean, come on, that is a complete 180, a total transformation, all sparked by one tiny shift in the conversation.
Okay, so let's build on that idea. We're going to move into a really practical 3-step guide for using conversation to build something else that's absolutely crucial: empathy. It's called the 3 Ds. And you can think of it like a little toolkit for helping kids navigate the super complicated world of emotions and friendships. The 3 steps are supplement, explore, and evaluate. Let's break them down. So here's how it works. First up is supplement. This is where you help your child find more specific words for their feelings. Upset is a start, but are they feeling disappointed? Or maybe embarrassed or betrayed? Getting specific is key. Second, explore. This is where you gently help them try to see the situation from the other person's perspective. And finally, number 3, evaluate. You just talk about what happened, what went well, and what they could maybe try doing differently next time.
Let's put this into a real-life scenario. So, a boy named Alex is really hurt because his friend Jackson didn't seem to care when he got rejected by some other kids. So, first step, supplement. They talked it out, and Alex realized the real pain wasn't just the rejection, it was that his best friend didn't seem to notice he was hurting. Next, explore. They thought about it and remembered all the times Jackson was a good friend. They realized he probably wasn't trying to be mean, maybe just clueless in that moment. And finally, evaluate. Alex came up with a plan to talk to Jackson about it, and afterward, they talked about how that conversation went. See, the framework didn't just fix one problem, it taught Alex a life skill and actually made their friendship stronger. And believe it or not, these kinds of conversations have an even bigger payoff. They don't just help with feelings and friendships, they actually teach kids the incredibly important skill of how to learn.
It's so easy to get caught up in grades and test scores, isn't it? But the real ultimate goal of learning is so much bigger than that. It's about helping our kids find what truly interests them, what lights them up, and then giving them the tools they need to pursue that passion for life. And this quote from Sophie, the little girl from the museum, is just the perfect example. It shows exactly what these conversations can build. Just by talking about which books felt easy and which felt hard, she started to develop something called metacognition. It's a fancy word, but it just means she learned how to think about her own thinking. She could look at a hard book and say, okay, this is going to be tough, but I can figure it out. That, right there, is the heart of learning how to learn.
Okay, so we've talked about all these amazing strategies, but you might be thinking, where do I even begin? How do I actually use this stuff in the messy, chaotic reality of my own life?
Well, I absolutely love this piece of advice from a Harvard psychologist named Robert Keegan. He says, don't buy these ideas. Don't feel like you have to commit to them forever and implement them perfectly. Instead, just rent them. Try one on for size. See if it fits your family for a little while. And if it doesn't, no big deal. Just return it and try something else. The pressure is off.
Because at the end of the day, this is not about following some perfect script. Honestly, the most important thing is just to be present, to notice what your child really needs from you in that one moment. And more than anything, just stay curious. Curiosity truly is the engine that drives every single good conversation.
So I'll leave you with this question. Your next conversation with your child, it could be in the car, over dinner, whenever, what little discovery might be waiting in there for you to find together? Subscribe to the channel and like, and also suggest your topics for future videos in the comments.